My guess is that you have set a revenue goal for this calendar year, and that's the goal in your business. Am I right? The reality is that revenue goals are the most common way that small businesses accidentally sabotage themselves. And today we are going to talk about it right here on the Opt-in podcast. I'm Melissa Franks, your host, and I have over 25 years of experience building and scaling businesses from pre-revenue to 9 figures. And this is one of the most common mistakes I see in the small business space on an annual basis. What happens is that founders set a big revenue goal in January. There is a lot of language out there in the world today, whether it's Tony Robbins or other thought leaders in the small business space, saying you should set an impossible goal. And what that translates to for business owners is a revenue goal, an impossible revenue goal. I did $1 million last year, so I want to do 10 this year. And I appreciate that. I do think that we should set stretch goals and that we should really work to achieve greater than our minds can see. Often when we can see clearly how to achieve a goal, the goal is not big enough. So that mindset, I absolutely, emphatically am aligned with. There are some caveats which we're going to talk through today. Because when you set big revenue goals in January, what happens is that your team hustles harder. They work more. They're not necessarily pausing and figuring out smarter ways to do things. They're just doing more of the things they're already doing. You, in turn, feel busy. Then you begin to feel overwhelmed, and then you begin to react. What compounds this entire schema is that your revenue may actually grow. Underneath that, margins are probably shrinking, delivery is suffering, and you're losing your mind. So we're going to talk about today how to set goals, how to even make a declaration around revenue that you are targeting without creating this pattern we just walked through. Revenue goals aren't bad. I do think that you need to have an understanding of what you want your financial position to look like at the end of the year. It helps inform the things that you do and the money that you spend, the people that you hire. It's just that revenue goals are incomplete. It's not the whole equation. And incomplete goals create chaos. So if what you have been doing is just calling an audible, picking a number, maybe it's an educated number, maybe it's just a, I really want to stretch us and see what we can do number. When you lead with that and only that, chaos will ensue for you, your team, your clients, and sooner or later the business is going to suffer as a result. So you may be saying, revenue goals are productive. You may be saying, I can measure progress to the revenue goal. The revenue goal is data-based, so I can actually be objective about this. I can't feel like we're making $5 million. I can see whether we're making $5 million. The team also is culturally rewarded. There's like this energy and this buzz and this excitement about every sale, about every milestone hit, and the outside world is the loudest of them all. Investors, peers, social media obsess over it. How many of you saw towards the end of the year reels, posts, stories, advertising that said, I'm a 7-figure this, I'm an 8-figure that. We achieved our biggest year ever in revenue. Business owners use revenue attainment as a marketing tactic. What that then does is applies pressure on you to make you feel like you aren't keeping up, that you haven't come along so far. It's like the business owner version of keeping up with the Joneses. And what that will do is have you set these outpaced, outstretched goals without all of the bits and pieces that go with it, creating pressure for your team. Revenue is an outcome, not a plan. It is the result that you get by doing other things. So I would like you to reframe as we go through this conversation that when you set a revenue target, it's the outcome that you're looking for. And there are other things that have to be achieved along the way, aka goals, to achieve the revenue outcome that you are looking for. Revenue, a revenue target, does not tell your team what to prioritize, what to stop doing, or how to make decisions day to day. When you say we're going to make $5 million this year, it does not give the team any sort of context clues around what to prioritize and what to do to help you get closer to that end result. That is fundamentally why, if you are basing your goals solely on revenue, there is a gap. There are incomplete goals in place. Revenue goals answer what you want. Operational targets answer how you'll get there. And these are two distinctly different things, and it is incredibly important for you to understand and implement both so that you can achieve the outcome, aka the revenue, aka the results that you want by the end of the year. When a business is only focused on revenue, and we all know them, we know business owners, maybe it's us, so maybe you're looking in the mirror right now, you may be creating some chaos. When you are focused only on revenue, everything becomes urgent and time sensitive. There is no filter for requests or opportunities. If it will make you $1, it needs to be done right now. Teams say yes to everything because we need revenue. They say yes to everything. I want you to think about that a little bit. Have you ever sold anything you know you shouldn't have sold, but it moves you closer to that revenue target? Have you ever overcommitted yourself because it moves you closer to that revenue target? We were working with a business, we're still working with them, a year ago, and there was a very specific revenue target set, and it was in a time-bound pressure cooker sort of situation. And instead of pausing and really having qualifying conversations, are you qualified? Can you pay? Do you have a business the size that would necessitate you to buy this thing we just sold? You said yes, you had a credit card, it was going to clear. We just sold. And what ended up happening was the revenue target was hit. It was achieved. Like, there was a big celebration, there was a big public fanfare, it was all the stuff. And then behind the scenes, what happened was an experience that eroded, that quality began to suffer, and the actual culture of the client experience diminished. And the reason for that was because there were people in there that didn't belong there. In some cases, there were people that didn't pay. In many cases, there were people that weren't bought in. And so they were speaking out negatively about everything, criticizing everything, second guessing everything. And it became highly disruptive. And hindsight being 2020, achieving the revenue target at the sacrifice of the client experience was a bad call. It was a bad call. But this is what happens sometimes, is that the teams start to chase around and say, we need the revenue, and they start to get lax on the standards that were in place. They stop following systems. They start saying yes to everything. They start bending the rules and making exceptions, and then all of a sudden, you may have hit the revenue target, but you have this mess, this management mess that you have as a result. When you're focused on revenue only, often marketing and ops are not aligned. Marketing will sell whatever converts the fastest. So ops is structured systemically in a way that says we have to do this and then this and then this and then this, and there's an order of operations, and this is how it goes, and this thing works until it gets to the size and then it breaks. Operations is matter of fact. It is a step-by-step little machine of running things through. And when marketing starts selling whatever converts, when you're like, ooh, do more of that because that's what people want, that's what people are buying, that's what people are responding to, ops begins to scramble. All of a sudden, as we talked about just a few minutes ago, there's all these exceptions to the rules. All of a sudden, there's that they bought this, but then we also wanted to do this, and we gave them a 20% coupon off of that. And there's all of these if-then statements that happen, and what ends up happening is there's no way to track. There's no way to fulfill. There's nowhere to be consistent and coherent. And the human that's buying things, whether it be products or services, understands what they bought and what the contract, verbal contract or written contract was for what they got, and they may not be getting it on the back end because the team may be so confused. They may not understand that Sally D gets something different than Sally F, even though they look the same on the order sheet. Ops get so behind, and they get pressured to be able to fulfill what was sold, even if they don't have clarity around what that was supposed to look like. And then, because ops is scrambling, margins quietly erode. Discounts start to increase. Custom work creeps in. Overtime and burnout spike. And refunds skyrocket. You might be a business that doesn't offer refunds. And yet, when you're just doing things to get revenue, when you're selling whatever it is that you can sell, even if there's no way to be able to fulfill it, people are going to end up unhappy and they're going to ask for their money back. And so then what happens is that you thought you hit the revenue goal, except now months later, you're sliding backwards, and you've got to do something else to make up for it, creating the cycle all over again where things become more urgent, and then you start to sell whatever you can, margins quietly erode, and then you become the bottleneck as the leader. Because every decision feels high stakes, every exception, every request for a discount, every recommendation to give a refund. What you start to see is chaos erupt. You start to see the entire system break down, and you potentially start to see that you're moving farther and farther away from your revenue goal. So what you do is you jump back into execution just to keep things moving, just to help out, just to bring clarity. What you actually do is you inject more chaos. And I want you to realize that chaos is not a leadership failure. It's a planning failure. This does not mean that you're a bad leader. It does not mean that your team of leaders is bad. It means that there was a planning breakdown somewhere, and that's creating all of the turmoil that you are now experiencing inside of the business. And that's all because one thing is missing: operational targets. An operational target is not a revenue target. An operational target is something that you can measure with data, and it's specific to performance. It is things like capacity targets. How much can you realistically deliver? Efficiency targets. What's our service level agreement? So how long for us to get that thing done? How much is it going to cost? So it's not going to cost us any more than this number to fulfill. And what's our margin? And that margin can be looked at by offer, by the thing that you sell, by product, by service. It can be looked at as a whole, the macro level, by the company. Operational targets are also team targets that are set. So what are the targets by role? Who owns specific outcomes? Who has decision rights and is accountable for the decisions and outcomes that they make? And then systems targets. What must be built or fixed to scale? So when you look at these operational targets clearly, there's 4 categories of them, like I said: capacity targets, efficiency targets, team targets, system targets. Operational targets are the roads, the speed limits, and the fuel stops. The revenue goal is the destination. Use the road trip in your mind to think about this. The plan, which we are not talking about here, is literally the directions that you have to get to the destination. And in the olden days, it was that you had a list and you just followed the list and you got surprised by the things that came along. In today's world, our plans are significantly more nimble because we have technology that can predict what's about to happen in front of us and can course correct us. That's called the iteration of a plan, okay? So along this goal-setting road trip, you have the plan, which is your map and how to get to the destination. You have your revenue goal, which is the destination. And then you have operational targets, which are which roads you are driving on, how fast you are going, and where you need to stop and recharge and get new fuel and reset and move on. I say often you have to slow down to speed up. That fuel stop is the slowing down to speed up. If you think about a pit crew in an F1 race, they move real fast in the pit crew, but what's the car doing? It is not moving. It is not moving while the team gets everything together in order to get the car back on the racetrack to move it again. And you really have to think about this. This is the best analogy for how all of these things work together. It's the absolute best. So if we break this down, let's say that you did your first 100K last year. You were figuring stuff out. You now know what people want to buy. You now have a solid offer structure and you want to pour gas on the fire demand is there and you want to just go for it. So this year, your revenue goal is $2 million. You're like, I used last year to learn and figure it out and I can hit 2 million. Cool. That's the destination. That's the result that you want. So then your operational targets, if you want to arrive at 2 million, your operational targets can look like some or all of these. How much average revenue per client do you need to bring in? How many clients can a team member support on their own? What's the delivery timelines? Is what you're selling to be delivered in 6 weeks total? Is it a year-long situation? What are those? What are your profit margin floors? So where will you not go below? So your revenue target might be 2 million, but is your profit margin goal 50%? That means that your gross profit margin is $1 million. So how do you ensure as you're going through the year and you go from 100 to 500 to $1 million that your profit margin stays at 50%? And then how many offers are you going to put into the marketplace? And more importantly than how many offers, what are you not selling? What is off limits? What is not going forward? We have had a few clients in the services space, once they got to a certain size, say that what was off limits was one-on-one time with them. They were no longer selling their time. And when things felt very far away from that revenue target, that destination, what always came back to the table was maybe I just need to sell some of my time. That's always what came through. And then we went back to these operational targets and said, that's off limits. So what else isn't working? And often we were able to find that we had a problem in attainment with one of the operational targets and we just needed to solve for that. And then once we did, we were able to get back on track. The off limits list is so important. The what are you not selling at for any reason is incredibly important, and honoring it is necessary because all that it does is it band-aids it and then it breaks everything else. So that whole chaos conversation that we just have, that continues to be the reality in your business if you don't have a list of things that are off limits. And maybe now you have a revenue target and you've already started the year and you're working through everything, and you haven't done these. It's not too late. You can do them. I do want to share with you for future consideration that if you do not define operational targets in advance before the team starts working or heading to the destination, aka revenue goal, then your team will invent them in real time and they will not match. So if you do not define what the operational targets are in advance, when you declare you want to make $2 million, if you don't define the other targets that need to be achieved to get to the 2 million, the team's going to make them up themselves. And they are not going to be the same as you want, and likely they will not get you to your destination. It may get them to that theme park that they want to go to that is completely out of the way. So unless you're cool with some detours, and unless you're cool with maybe not getting to the revenue target but having an amazing experience, you need to set both the revenue target and the operational targets when you make a declaration about what you want to achieve for the calendar year. Are you second guessing me right now? Are you thinking that I'm exaggerating a little bit? That when the team makes their own operational targets, you're going to miss the destination? Here's the truth based on my experience. Teams struggle when they do not have operational targets. Because from the team's perspective, what ends up happening is there are conflicting priorities, there are constant pivots, and there's no clarity on what good looks like. They don't have an understanding of how their performance is being measured. They don't have a way to tie break. So if two different team members have different priorities, they don't have a way to say, we have to move forward with this one because this helps us achieve the operational target. They just will continue to go back and forth, and it creates constant pivots and changes, and then you as the leader are frustrated that people don't think strategically. You're frustrated that people aren't using their brains. You see that there's constant rework happening. You thought something was done and then the patient's back on the table and you're like, why is this still not finished? Why haven't we figured this out? Why are we still talking about this? Why are we starting over again? And you see emotional decision making instead of data-driven choices. Because remember, everybody's chasing the dollar. When you don't have operational targets, they're just saying yes to however they're going to make money inside of the business. And that's driven by emotion. That's driven by a little bit of either one of two things: adrenaline, because the sales are rolling in, or panic because the sales aren't and there's a scarcity mindset happening. When your teams don't have ops targets, they're not failing to execute your vision. You didn't give them the operating system to be able to do it. So you can set revenue goals that do not create chaos. It is possible. That's the whole point of this podcast. I don't want to tell you don't set a revenue goal. It's an and. Set a revenue goal and do this too. So here's the framework without overwhelm that will allow your team to be able to execute on a steady, methodical basis and get you to that destination that you've declared, aka your revenue goal. So the first part of the framework is that you are going to start with revenue. You're going to declare it. Now, I recorded a few podcasts about plans, and what I am going to recommend to you is don't just pick a number. Don't pick a number because you saw Sally do it down the street and you're competing with Sally and you think you can do it too. Look at your actual data. If you, that example that I gave earlier where you did $100,000 last year and you want to do $2 million this year, I'd advise against it. I don't think that you should say that you're going to do a 10% increase, but I would say maybe a 3x. Maybe a 5x. So if you did $100,000 last year, shoot for $500,000. Shoot for $1 million, maybe. But as you get bigger, the multiples of the business contract. So if you were a $5 million business, you might be trying to get to 7 this year, not 15. And all that depends on data. You're able to look and see what is your lead flow, what is your deal flow, what are the levers that you can pull in the existing framework and the things that you sell to be able to move things faster. Do you need to spend more on advertising? Do you need to improve churn or retention numbers? Do you need to create a continuity offer that doesn't exist today? Like, there's all of these things that you can do. But before you set the revenue target, you need to have a clear perspective on what realistically is attainable and then what your stretch goal is. And then you immediately want to take that and translate it into capacity limits. So how much of the things that I'm already doing can I do before it breaks? And I either need to have a people solution, so I need to hire more people. Process solution, we have to completely rethink how we do this whole thing. Or I need a tech solution. We need different technology to be able to do this. Then identify the delivery constraints. Exactly the same way. And then define the margin requirements. In order to get to this revenue, my margin must look like this. And after you set those things, then you decide what must grow, what must stay fixed, and what must stop. Generally speaking, when you want to grow a business, you continue to refine and simplify. This is generally not, I'm going to add this thing, I'm going to add that thing, I'm going to add this thing. Sometimes it is. It depends on the stage of your business. This is the trickiest thing to figure out. The hardest questions that you will ask yourself in your business are what must grow, what must stay fixed, and what must stop. This is the core tenets of your business model. What am I selling, to whom, and how much more of it can I sell? Sometimes it is do nothing. Keep everything as it is today. Just do more. Other times, it is to simplify and reduce what you sell. We worked with an e-commerce business, and when we went into them, they were selling 450 SKUs. They were really struggling with profitability. And one of the very quick recommendations we were made was to dramatically reduce the offering and to simplify the solutions being provided and position them in a different way so that it was easier for people to buy over time and for them to stay sticky and clear on what they were buying. Sometimes it's reducing a whole bunch of things in order to grow. In other times, it is adding things. It might be that you have a couple of different pillars, departments, divisions, offers, product lines that are selling quite well and have a steady growth pattern, and you want to really aggressively do something. And those two things are stable, you understand how they scale, you've been able to evidence it and experience it, and so then this is the opportunity to add. It takes a lot of data and strategic executive manpower to make recommendations about this. So when you are looking, you have to spend time and really decide where you're going to focus for the year. And if you end up with a list of 20 things, you're not there yet. What has to be true operationally for this revenue goal to be healthy? That is the question that you have to ask yourself. As you're going through and you're setting capacity limits and delivery constraints and margin requirements, and you're making decisions about what you do and don't do anymore, you really have to keep asking yourself what must operationally be true for this revenue goal to be healthy. Growth that your operations cannot support is not growth, it's debt. And the bill collector will come knocking on your door a lot faster than you think. You started your business because you're passionate about something, because you wanted to be able to help people, you wanted to bring new products into the world. You didn't start your business to understand these clear operational principles for which long-term thriving businesses subscribe to. Businesses are not taught to plan this way. Any thought leader in this space is encouraging you to set an impossible revenue goal. Any thought leader in this space out there today is encouraging you to hustle. You're just not working hard enough. Work longer, work harder, do more. Sit in the pain for longer. You weren't taught to plan this way. This is exactly how corporations plan. This is why corporations are around for hundreds of years and continue to grow and diversify and thrive. Because those inside know the secret. I was one of them once. And that's why I'm bringing the secret to you. I want you to just really sit with the fact that this does not require more discipline. It's just about being more specific. This doesn't require more energy from you. It doesn't require more doing from you. It just asks for you to be clear and data-driven with your intention. While you are looking at the goals that you set for the year, the targets you set for the year, what your teams are actively working on, I want you to ask yourself a question. If you stripped out your goals, would your team still know how to operate? Would they know what the priority was? Would they know what to drive forward next? What would they focus on? This is hard work. Setting clear intention, declaring a destination, and then defining operational targets to get there requires sophistication of thought, experience, know-how, and deep analysis. This is not something that you innately know as soon as you receive your articles of incorporation for your business and you kick open your doors. If you are struggling to figure out how this translates for your business, you're not alone. This is exactly why we host strategy sessions for founders. It's exactly why our seasoned C-suite executives spend 90 minutes every month with business owners, helping them work through this framework, get very, very specific on exactly where they want to go and the targets they need to set, and then handing back to them the plan to execute. There's even business owners that we support all the way through the year. So we do that in the first session, and then for the next 3 sessions, we're helping course correct and adjust the plan. We're evaluating the operational targets and coming up with the next right steps for you to take. When you have all of this put together, you have clarity, sustainability, and peace of mind. Revenue is a result. Operations are a strategy. I hope that you found this helpful today. The best way to support this podcast and continue to get information like this in front of your eyeballs and your ears and your teams is to rate, review, and subscribe. And if you are interested in getting some support for taking your revenue target and applying operational targets that are achievable for your team, the good news is that we have a few spots open right now for our 90-minute strategy calls. The link is going to be in the show notes, and if you are interested, all you have to do is book a call with us just to make sure that we understand your business and it's the right fit, and then we will get going. So, until next time, friends, please know that you are wise, you are strong, and you're capable, and I believe in you.